The Radical Power of Healing, Redefining Success for Black Professionals. Thank you all for being here today. I'm truly honored to stand before you to share some transformative insights I recently gathered from an extraordinary conversation with Jacqueline Mitchell, whose work in empowering Black professionals through intentional healing and community building is nothing short of revolutionary. Jacqueline Mitchell isn't just creating programs, she's igniting a movement. Through her Let's Get This Glow Up initiative, she's challenging generations of conditioning about what success looks like for Black professionals. She's daring to suggest that our healing isn't separate from our excellence, it's the very foundation of it. In a world that constantly asks Black professionals to compartmentalize trauma while performing at the highest levels, Jacqueline is boldly proclaiming that our wholeness is our greatest professional asset. We've all heard the narrative: success requires sacrifice, advancement demands resilience, leadership calls for strength. These statements aren't wrong, but they are dangerously incomplete. And for Black professionals navigating spaces not designed with them in mind, this incomplete narrative isn't just misleading, it's destructive. Today, I want to share with you a counterintuitive idea that emerged from my conversation with Jacqueline Mitchell. It's a concept that flips our traditional understanding of professional advancement on its head. Are you ready for this? The most powerful professional strategy for Black excellence isn't working harder. It isn't networking more strategically. It isn't even acquiring more credentials. It's healing. Yes, healing. Intentional, deliberate, unapologetic healing. This might not sound strange at first. After all, we've been conditioned to believe that professional advancement is about external achievements, promotions, titles, compensation. But what if the most revolutionary act of leadership is actually turning inward? What if sustainable success requires us to address our mental, emotional, and spiritual well being first? This is the insight that Jacqueline Mitchell has been championing, that for Black professionals, embracing your own healing journey isn't separate from professional success. It is the very foundation of impactful leadership in our communities. Now, I know what you might be thinking. That sounds nice, but in the real world, we need practical strategies for advancement. I hear you. But let me share some evidence that might challenge that perspective. In Milwaukee, a group of Black healthcare professionals noticed something disturbing. Their community was experiencing disproportionately high rates of untreated mental illness. Black patients were flooding emergency rooms for psychiatric crises. The stigma around seeking help was overwhelming, and the existing healthcare systems weren't designed to meet their cultural needs. These professionals could have simply continued their individual careers, perhaps advocating for incremental change within existing systems. That would have been the conventional path. Instead, they did something radical. They founded Empathy Mental Health, an organization built specifically to address the mental health needs of Black Milwaukeeans. But here's what makes their approach revolutionary: they didn't just create another service provider, they built an organization where the providers reflect the community they serve, where the treatment models are culturally responsive, where the entire approach acknowledges the unique mental health challenges that come with being Black in America. The results have been transformative. Access to quality care has increased dramatically. The stigma around seeking help has diminished. Client outcomes have improved significantly, and their model is now inspiring similar initiatives nationwide. This is what happens when healing becomes a leadership strategy. When professionals recognize that addressing community trauma isn't separate from professional excellence, it's a pathway to it. But the power of this approach isn't limited to healthcare. Let's look at another example that Jacqueline Mitchell highlighted in our conversation. In Boston, Black professionals were facing a different kind of challenge. They were navigating profound isolation in predominantly white workplaces. They lacked representation at senior levels. They had limited access to the networks and resources needed for business and career growth. The conventional approach would have been to create more networking events or professional development workshops. But the founders of the Boston Wild Black Summit understood something deeper, that Black professionals in Boston weren't just facing external barriers, they were carrying internal wounds from navigating hostile environments. So they created something different. Yes, they built networking opportunities, but they also created safe spaces like the Career Lounge and mentoring hours. They developed programming centered on financial therapy, healing money wounds, and building social capital. They recognize that professional advancement for Black leaders requires addressing the whole person, including the wounds that come from navigating spaces not designed for their success. The outcomes speak for themselves. Over 5 years, these summits have served thousands across the New England region. Attendees have reported accelerated promotions and business launches. New ventures and partnerships have emerged. But perhaps most importantly, participants have found a space where they can bring their whole selves, not just their professional personas, to their career development. This demonstrates how intentional convenings that address healing can fuel individual transformation while shifting citywide culture toward equity and belonging. Now, let's consider a third example that Jacqueline Mitchell shared, one that has been proving this principle for generations: historically Black colleges and universities. Despite chronic underfunding and systemic obstacles, HBCUs continue producing the majority share of America's top tier Black engineers, doctors, and judges. They've produced 40% of the nation's Black engineers, 70% of Black doctors and dentists, and countless civic leaders and cultural icons over decades. How do they achieve these remarkable outcomes with fewer resources? By understanding something fundamental about excellence that many other institutions miss. HBCUs don't just educate minds, they heal spirits. They don't just prepare students for careers, they affirm their identities. They don't just teach skills, they build community. They understand that excellence isn't just about academic achievement, it's about healing historical wounds, building affirming community, and creating spaces where Black students can bring their whole selves to their professional development. These three examples illuminate something profound about success for Black professionals. The conventional wisdom tells us that professional advancement requires compartmentalization, separating our personal struggles from our professional personas. But what these case studies show is that integration, not compartmentalization, is the key to sustainable excellence. This brings me to the second key insight from my conversation with Jacqueline Mitchell. Your story is power. We are often taught to hide our struggles, to present only our polished achievements. But Jacqueline Mitchell challenges this notion. She suggests that sharing your messy experiences authentically can transform shame into strength and become a beacon for others navigating similar paths. Think about it. When we hide our struggles, we perpetuate the myth that success comes easily to others. We isolate ourselves in our challenges. We cut ourselves off from the very connections that could help us overcome them. But when we share our stories, the rejections, the microaggressions, the moments of doubt, we create space for authentic connection. We transform personal pain into collective wisdom. We turn individual healing into community power. This leads to the third key insight from Jacqueline Mitchell: community and sisterhood matter. Building networks rooted in empathy and shared purpose amplifies individual wins into collective advancement. As she powerfully puts it, no one glows up alone. This is particularly crucial for Black professionals who often find themselves isolated in predominantly white institutions or industries. The conventional wisdom might suggest that success requires assimilation, downplaying cultural identity to fit in. But Jacqueline Mitchell's work suggests the opposite, that authentic community built around shared experiences and cultural affirmation is actually a professional superpower. When Black professionals create spaces where they can be fully themselves, where they can process both challenges and triumphs with others who truly understand, they aren't just finding comfort, they're building strategic advantage. They are creating networks of mutual support that make everyone stronger. So, what does all this mean for you? What if you treated your personal healing journey, not just your resume, as your most valuable asset? I challenge you today to reimagine what professional excellence looks like, to consider that your journey toward wholeness isn't separate from your journey toward success. It is your success. This perspective doesn't minimize the very real external barriers that Black professionals face. Systemic racism, implicit bias, and structural inequities remain significant challenges. But it does suggest that our response to these challenges can be more powerful when it includes intentional healing. When we heal, we lead from wholeness rather than woundedness. When we heal, we make decisions from clarity rather than trauma. When we heal, we build connections from authenticity rather than performance. I invite you to take one bold step toward this integration today. Choose one messy area you've been avoiding and use it as fuel for connection or creativity rather than something that holds you back. Maybe it's a professional setback you've been ashamed to discuss. Perhaps it's a mental health challenge you've been hiding. It could be a cultural disconnect you've experienced in your workplace. Whatever it is, consider how might addressing this area actually strengthen rather than weaken your professional journey? How might sharing it create meaningful connections? How might healing it unlock new levels of leadership? The world doesn't just need your achievements, it needs your wholeness. Your community doesn't just need your resilience, it needs your joy. Your workplace doesn't just need your skills, it needs your authentic voice. So I leave you with this challenge: dare to redefine success on your own terms. Dare to prioritize healing as a professional strategy. Dare to build community around authentic connection rather than performative networking. Because when we heal ourselves, we don't just change our own trajectories, we create new possibilities for our communities. We model new forms of leadership. We transform not just our careers, but our culture. This is the radical power of healing. This is the true meaning of the glow up. And this is how we will redefine success, not just for ourselves, but for generations to come. Thank you.